Good morning. Thank you, Sandeep, for that very generous introduction. In childhood, I read the Mahabharata when Yudhishthir had said that infamous lie, aswasthamahata. That time he wanted to commit suicide for having told a lie for the first time. And after a lot of deliberation, I believe Sri Krishna advised him that listening to your praise and about your achievement is as good as committing suicide. So you don't have to commit suicide, so we'll make sure that somebody does that. And thank you, Sandeep, for doing that, so my sins are kind of balanced out. And I'm always a little wary of introductions of this kind, because I read a story where an ordinary man like me was to be introduced to a very enlightened audience like you. And he was introduced as a self-made man from California. I know several of you are from California, who made billions of dollars in gold business. And his customary, he stood up and thanked his introducer and said, well, the introduction is broadly correct, excepting some minor aberrations of facts that I would like to set right. He said, to be honest, the state involved was not California, it was Florida. To be really honest, the item involved was not gold, it was coal. To be really honest, the person involved was not me, it was my brother. To be absolutely truthful, the amount involved was not $1 billion, it was just $1 million or $100 million. And to be really honest, we didn't make that much of money, we lost that much of money. So as I was listening to Sandeep's introduction, I was saying, which are those minor aberrations of facts I need to set right? He gave me two chances. One is that I have stepped down from exam Bhubaneswar board, Sandeep. There were too many board responsibilities, I couldn't. But having said that, I'm delighted to be here. I must admit that I'm sleepless and hungry. I got up at 4 o'clock in Mumbai, took a 6 o'clock flight, missed the breakfast because I slept through the aircraft. But when I entered here and saw those posters, the beautiful ones, the journey down the memory lane and the different phases, I felt inspired and I felt energized because of your attitude of gratitude, your sense of contribution, your connect with your alma mater, your dedication to give your time willingly, freely, generously to create the vision document for this institute and be so willing to partner with the institute to take it forward. I do not know how many of you, those studied at NIT Rourkela, are from Odisha. How many of you are not from Odisha really? Can you just raise your hands, please? Thank you, several of you. But if you bear with me, I hope you remember some smattering of Odia, other than the slangs, I presume. And therefore, I'm going back to remember Pandit Utkal Mani Gopabandhu Das, and he said a sentence. And if I remember it correctly, he said, Punya Janma Mati, Punya Devalayo, Uddhariva Pai Kale Tanukshaya, Manava Jivana Huai Safala, Yamaha Dikhya Kivujiva Utkala. He was trying to tell the people from Odisha that if you give your sweat and your strength and your intelligence to revive your own birthplace and the temple therein, that your life becomes successful. This is a lesson Odisha needs to learn. And I believe when Pandit Gopabandhu Das was referring to Punya Janma Mati and Devalaya, the temple and the motherland, I believe those were metaphors for reviving institutions. And I believe what you're trying to do is to revive, re-energize, modernize, make your institution, your alma mater, world-class, selflessly. And what can be more inspiring and energizing than that? And despite my sleeplessness, I feel inspired to be here. And it is also very inspiring to see the pillars of vision that you have created. I'm sure you will have much more opportunity to discuss about that. And I think if we are able to deliver all of that, which we need to deliver together, my honorable board colleagues are there, the former director is there, the current director is there, Professor Acharya is there, Mr. Ansuman Das is there. Of course, many of you from different parts bring in so much of experience. The challenge is, how do we bring all these hundreds of experience of yours, years of experience of yours together to make that vision reality? Because somebody told me once that the world consists of 4 kinds of people. Those who want things happen, those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who do not know what happened. And I believe you all from NIT Rourkela belong to the first 2 categories. You want things happen, and you make things happen. But in trying to make things happen, we need to also, while we need to be driven by optimism and objectivity, where the board is inspired and energized by your leadership of creating that vision document, we need to also be simultaneously cognizant that we live in real life. And that is that the Institute operates within the frameworks of the Government of India, and we as Institute leaders need to learn that sometimes it is easier to get forgiveness than to get permission. So therefore, if we always wait for MHRD's permission, we may not get it. Sometimes we have to lead and then seek forgiveness. And that's been my experience, that it's easier to get forgiveness than permission. And that would be a great act of leadership within the Institute if we can do that. Many times we read that culture eats strategy for breakfast. We need to be able to build a culture within NIT Rourkela, which is the job of the director, with the board of directors' help, the senior faculty, where the culture is one of absorbent culture that embraces and welcomes ideas of the kind that you all are creating. And of course, I know that we all, as old institutions, can be enemies of ourselves, and we need to be very sensitive to that. But I believe that if we come together, work together, pool our experience together, our minds together, it would not be very difficult for us to achieve some amount. As Sandeep said, even from that vision document, perhaps like a convention's analogy that he brought, if we can achieve even 20% in next 2 years, I would think that would make a transformative change for NIT Rourkela. I remember that famous sentence where somebody said that, "Oh God, give me the courage to change the things that I can. Give me the patience to live with things that I cannot change. And give me the wisdom to make the distinction between the two." I hope that we all have both the courage to change the things that we can, we have the patience to live with and wait for things that cannot change immediately, and we have the wisdom to make the distinction between the two. Thank you again for having me here. I am personally committed, as is the director, as the board. You all were very kind. CP, Sandeep came and briefed the board at the last meeting about the vision document. Hopefully today we will have at the board meeting opportunity to discuss it at a little more length. But the crux of this whole thing would lie in how do we go and execute this. Execution is always the challenge. We'll have to find innovative, smart ways of executing the vision. And I have no doubt that if we are able to even do 20% of that perfect execution, NIT Rourkela would be in the top of the league of whatever we want to set out in our minds. Thank you again for having me here, and I wish you all a great convention. Thank you.